Hello, Canada. Welcome back to another edition of the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, alias to Guy. So we got a fair amount we're going to try and go through here. Trump just launched an attack on the Houthi rebels in Yemen. We're going to deal with some more breaking news from Sam Cooper, done on the Rebel, about more proof that Trudeau has been infiltrated by the CCP. Not only the Liberal Party, but definitely Trudeau, as he has pictures of him. And we know that the RCMP has been hiding evidence that they actually knew about it and have recorded those conversations, but have not broken to the public, nor have they come forward with any types of charges. Again, hiding and protecting the people that sign their checks and appoint their bosses. Canada is an embarrassment. And then we're going to tackle the presser that Danielle Smith had. She touches on some pretty key notes, and then we're going to debunk the absolute bullcrap that the media and Carney signed off that the cancel the carbon tax, which can't be done without Parliament that we know of. And now it's actually coming out that there's proof that the piece of paper he signed is a lie. It's not as good as a napkin with a beer stain with somebody's signature on it. It's not worth its weight, not worth crap. So let's just start off with Trump and what's going on in Yemen. And take it with a grain of salt. This is a short clip. Pretty much a lot of what they say is bull crap, especially when they talk about the dead and everything. That's all lies. Our media lies. This is just the shortest clip I could find in order to try and get this all done in a really quick episode.
These scenes, the aftermath of a series of U.S. airstrikes on the capital city of Yemen. According to the country's Houthi-run health ministry, at least 9 civilians were killed and another 9 were injured in the attack, which came Saturday night local time. The strikes, ordered directly by U.S. President Donald Trump himself, who announced the move via his Truth Social platform. The president posting a long-winded note to the website detailing his instructions to launch the attack on Sana'a. He says the move was made in direct response to the Yemen-based Houthis' unrelenting campaign of violence and terrorism against American aircrafts, drones, and ships in the Red Sea. He also dropped a warning to the militant group directly, saying, quote, "Hell will rain down upon you if they did not abandon their campaign." The Houthis have launched more than 100 attacks targeting ships in the Red Sea since November of 2023, saying the strikes were launched in solidarity with Palestinians over the war in Gaza.
All right, and this is where they carry on with their lies. Yes, they did ramp it up a little wee bit with what was going on in Palestine, but they've been doing this for years. It started about 4 months after Biden took over, and it's just escalated ever since. And now we know that the Biden administration was actually funneling money and arms to all of these rebels, like ISIS, Al Qaeda, all of the people that are the psychos of the planet, the murderers of the planet. It's sure nice to have. Wouldn't it be nice here if we had a government that actually opened up all of the papers and exposed the backdoor dealings and political propaganda that they push and who they fund? It'd be nice, except for we have the Liberal Party, the most corrupt party on the face of the earth. Let's move on to more breaking news about Trudeau and how the cops, the RCMP, knew years ago that he had been infiltrated by the CCP and is involved, and knowing and wittingly, obviously, because he's meeting with them behind closed doors, with people who are running fentanyl, who are money laundering, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to run a quick clip here.
Exclusive. Chinese narco suspect caught in private meeting with Trudeau. Investigated by the DEA, that's the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency, linked to Panama, Caribbean, Mexico, says police sources. And I'm just going to read the first sentence, and then I'd love it if you took it away. Shocking new details are emerging about a major Chinese organized crime suspect who met privately with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, according to a police source who confirmed recent reporting from the Globe and Mail. The individual, Paul King Jin, is allegedly implicated in money laundering operations spanning the Western Hemisphere, and has been a target of multiple failed major investigations in BC. Sort of incredible that we're only hearing about this now that Trudeau's gone. What do you think, Sam?
Well, I mean, it is incredible that we're only hearing that detail after Mr. Trudeau was at the door or out the door. But Ezra, that type of meeting was the subject of my book, Willful Blindness, published in 2021. And so I was, I would say the journalistic subject matter expert on the poster boy of Chinese fentanyl money laundering networks, a Mr. Paul King Jin, this alleged narco that I didn't know was captured in RCMP surveillance in a private meeting with Mr. Trudeau. However, that's a great detail. Kudos to the Globe and Mail for picking that up. And so I built upon that story. I went back to a source and said, yes, indeed, they were aware that this surveillance found Mr. Trudeau there. But what I did know, Ezra, was that I have reported for years that another individual in that private meeting is a senior former People's Liberation Army official. I know you know something about PLA officers coming to Canada and the concerns that raises. Well, look, even if you're a former PLA officer, CSIS will track you in Canada. The RCMP will track you. And so I knew that this extremely powerful, wealthy PLA veteran is believed, and I'm not going to name the name in this broadcast, but is believed by Canadian police intelligence to be involved in sort of security networks tied to Beijing that are involved in interoperability with Chinese organized crime. And again, let's focus on Mr. Jin.
So he goes on and on about this. The DEA knows about this. This is that whole point that Trump had made about Panama, Mexico, and Canada and the illegal fentanyl trade. The States knows what's going on. And what did we do? We allowed Trudeau to put his tail between his legs and run and hide because he's being protected by the RCMP. He's being protected by the media. And then we bring in somebody who's even more evil. Now, I'm not sure about his links to the fentanyl trade, but we know he's involved in corruption with China. We know what he did to Brazil, burning down 9,000 acres of forest, building dams and flooding out indigenous people. But he still has 11 members in his parliament that are part of or promoted by and funded by the Chinese Communist Party. The one that definitely everybody should know about is Mary Ng. She's supposedly they said that she unwittingly knew. But if it's been 2 years or more that we've known this and she's still part of the government and there's an election coming up, then she is a willing participant. And the fact that Trudeau took her, specifically her, down to the Asia trade summits to sign new deals should start to really ring some bells that our government isn't for us. They're working for the Chinese government. We're picking a fight because mainstream media isn't doing their job. They're a propaganda arm. They're lying right to your face every day. And I'm going to prove that with Carney's lie about how he signed some order that he actually can't do. It's illegal in Canada. About the carbon tax. It's all lies, people. And the media, they should be doing their job, but they're not. We're going to move on to Daniel Smith. I'm just going to point out some clips that I think are quite pertinent and people should be hearing. Take it away, Daniel.
Premier, we have a new Prime Minister, and there are a lot of people in this town in the oil and gas sector who are particularly worried about outcomes and the future of the oil and gas sector. So if Prime Minister Carney continues on with policies of Justin Trudeau, Stephen Guilbeault, or part of that, what are you prepared to do to push back if that happens?
Well, what I would say is that we know that this last 10 years of federal government has brought some of the most destructive policies to Alberta, whether it's been emissions caps or methane caps or net zero electricity grids or net zero cars or net zero buildings or C-69 or tanker bans. That is a record they can't run away from. I've seen nothing to indicate that they're going to change course on that. In fact, the new Prime Minister has written his book on values, And one of his values is to phase out the oil and gas industry. So what I have been asking for is an election right away. We need to make sure that whichever way this gets resolved, that we have somebody at the table for 4 years who can negotiate a renewed Canada-U.S. free trade agreement so that we can end this back and forth on tariff war, which is benefiting no one. So I would hope to see an election call very soon.
Okay, and any budget adjustments for MLA Sinclair up in Lesser Slave Lake, who's complained there's not enough money going back into his...
CBC National News. Thanks for taking my question, Premier. I want to turn back to the announcement of the federal cabinet. Mark Carney has pushed Stephen Guilbeault out of the environment file, said he's going to get rid of the consumer carbon tax, but he still doesn't have any ministers, or only two ministers west of Ontario. I'm just curious what your sense is on what this says about his attempts to sort of reach out to Western Canada to make bridges to voters here and to this region.
Well, look, we had a problem in Parks Canada with them not clearing away forested areas, which has resulted in a wreck in Waterton, a wreck in Jasper, and we hope we don't have a wreck in Banff. So it's certainly not going to be, it's going to be soft comfort for everyone to see that Monsieur...
Gotta give her credit. She is so smooth. She really is so smooth. We know that Guilbeault purposely, the Liberal government let Jasper burn, people. They let it burn. They knew that they had deadfall, standing deadfall. They knew that there was a huge risk, like a 95% chance that a fire was going to wipe out Jasper as well as other communities. And they did nothing because they were afraid that it would hurt their climate narrative. This has all been proven. The documents are already out there. We need a new government so that we can open up the rest and expose all of the lies that have been involved with this Green New Deal lie, this whole carbon lie that's being pushed on the people.
Guilbeault still maintains a position in Parks Canada. We've got a lot of work to do. We're about to enter into fire season, and I would hope that we would be able to move very quickly on securing those towns so that they don't face a fire threat. So that would be one thing I'd say. I think that the Prime Minister has made his views very clear about keeping oil and gas in the ground. He's made his views very clear about not wanting a transparent carbon tax. He wants a hidden one. So I don't think it does Alberta any good if we end up seeing massive increases to industrial carbon taxes. It's been quoted many times saying he thinks that the carbon tax is too low. So I'm going to just reserve judgment. I had a whole range of things that are problematic with the federal government, from emissions caps to tanker bans off the West Coast, the inability to approve pipelines, getting approvals and then having them pulled, having a convoluted regulatory process that makes it impossible to get new pipelines built, continued threats of regulating our power grid, continued threats of regulating our industry, continued threats of export taxes, cutting off energy. I haven't really seen any change that would lead me to be encouraged that we're going to have a reset on our relationship. So we need an election, and that's how it needs to get sorted out.
Switching topics a little bit.
We're going to move on.
My questions are about the events in Ottawa today. And the first one is, and it was asked before, but I'm going to ask it in a somewhat different way. There's not a whole lot of representation in the inner circle of Mark Carney west of Thunder Bay. In fact, it's the same representation New Brunswick has. But Carney, in trying to answer the question, said, well, but I'm from the West. There's no problem. I'm from the West, implying that he will look after the West, and in more particularly Alberta. He'll have Alberta's back. Are you convinced that is the case, that because he was, grew up as a youth in Edmonton, that is enough to qualify as somebody standing up for Alberta?
I think what we've observed is that anyone who's elected under the banner of this party follows the party line. It doesn't matter where they're from. And so we have seen successive individuals who've gone to Ottawa, who have supported policies that have been terribly damaging for our industry. So I think that's why we need to have an election, is that we need to decide once and for all whether we're going to be supportive of each region, supportive of our principal industry, supportive of our principal export product, or whether we're going to continue on with the same destructive policies that we've seen for the last 10 years. So as I said, I don't think I've seen any indication that there's a change of heart or a change of course. And that's why we need to get to an election as soon as possible so we can sort that out.
And my second question, which is also about the new Prime Minister, is I know you've stood unequivocally against an export tax or curtailing oil. In fact, you want to produce more oil and gas, not less. Do you think that if Carney says he's going to be a different kind of liberal, do you think if these liberals get in, you're going to face the same sort, or Alberta will face the same sort of potential threat to the industry?
I would hope that the events of this week have made people realize how seriously the Americans take energy security. The president has signed an executive order declaring an energy emergency. So when it was threatened that electricity would be cut off, we saw an immediate increase of a tariff threat to 50% on steel and aluminum, and only after the premier backed down did those tariffs come in at 25%. I hope that is indicative to everyone. If that is how the reaction is going to be to $1 million worth of product going across the border, imagine what the reaction would be if for $350 million worth of product going across the border. Ontario only sells about $400 million a year in electricity. Alberta sells about $150 billion a year of oil and gas. So I would hope that if they haven't learned the lesson of the last week about how closely the Americans tie energy security to national security, I have every intention to make that perfectly clear in every meeting, in every forum. We will not support an export tax. We will not support any kind of curtailment on energy to the United States. We have other ways that we can take a measured and proportionate response, and that isn't it.
Thank you, Rick. And operator, could you put through our next caller, and then we'll come back to the room for a question after that.
Your next question comes from Kian Dex of Juno News.
Okay, we're going to move on.
Mac Vicker with Global News. Hi, Premier. On the federal cabinet, what is the directive you're giving your government? How are you guys going to maneuver this with, of course, calls for a federal election, but of course you guys have to work together with the federal cabinet given the tariff situation. So what does that maneuvering look like?
Oh, and I want to just state on that last statement there about what she was saying. From what I pieced together, and I've got no evidence about this, it's just my opinion from what I've pieced together through all of the different comments and from what I've been reading through posts and threads, is okay, so he declared an energy emergency, which gives him the power of using any means necessary. And I believe that Trump's administration pretty much told Ontario's premier and the representative from the Liberal Federal Party, the useless piece of crap, I'm not even going to say his name because he's a waste of skin, that this would mean war if he did that. And I've stated it before. That is an act of war by cutting the power off like that. It's in a contract. We've signed an agreement. And if you're going to cause harm and possible death to people in the United States, that's an act of war. You might as well launch a something that's going to go boom boom. That's pretty much. So I think as well that with Carney doing what he's doing and evading the talks is, I think we know they're trying to amp it up because they're getting votes out of it. And the government down south knows this and they're onto it. Tread carefully, Eastern Canada. Like I keep saying, you've already caused enough harm to Canada by keeping the Liberal Party in power, the new Liberal Party in power, the most corrupt government we've ever had. In fact, so far from how I'm trying to build files on what all they've done, the most corrupt Democratic party in the history of the world. They have more scandals than any other parliament that runs the same system as us, Westminster, by far. So far what I'm at is about 4 times, and I've still got another 30 or more scandals to go through. I'm going to try and build a video just on the scandals from Trudeau, and from what it's looking like is it's going to be a docu-series. I'm going to have 3, maybe 4 or more episodes because there is that many scandals. Moving on.
Like moving forward here?
Well, I don't really know. I mean, as you saw, we did do a joint announcement on homelessness funding for Calgary, Edmonton, Red Deer, and Lethbridge. We'd been working on that for some time, so I was pleased to see that go ahead. And there are other types of policies that we're just going to wait until the new government is established to be able to continue discussions on. Some of the joint programs that we have don't have an immediate timeline on them, so I think that there's an opportunity for us to wait until the election is over. I have yet to see how the new Prime Minister is going to manage his First Minister's meetings. We had been having, and we do have Council of the Federation meetings, which are just the premiers. We have been meeting weekly, and we've been adding in First Minister's meetings at the request of the Prime Minister. But now that that's changed, I'm not sure what that flow is going to be, but I'll certainly participate in those. The most important thing we can do right now is maintain some stability in our relationship with the United States, hopefully not see any escalation, and try to deal with any disputes in the meantime. But the only way we're really going to get to a resolution with our largest trading partner is a full renegotiation of the Canada-U.S. Free Trade Agreement. Those agreements can take up to 2 years to renegotiate. That's why we need an election. We need somebody at the table who has a 4-year mandate to be able to do that.
And on today's announcement, what is the plan to ensure the school boards who are getting these new schools have the resources available to recruit and hire on teachers to...
Okay, I'm going to move ahead a little bit more here.
Gillian Coad with City News. Just regarding the federal cabinet minimal Western representation, no one from Alberta. With that, are you concerned the voices of prairie farmers won't be heard, especially canola farmers, as they face tariffs from 2 of the biggest trading partners?
I think there's lots of ways that the premiers are going to be able to fill that information gap. I can tell you the issue of canola was very prominently on our agenda when we met at the Council of the Federation. And I think this is what the premiers have all seen, is that while there's this disruption at the federal level and while we're waiting for a new government to be chosen that has a 4-year mandate, we've all had to step up and be a lot more active in being able to build partnerships, make our case. I'll continue doing that. On the issue of canola, I've been told by my agriculture minister that the product we sell mostly to China is seed, and so much of that is going to be not disrupted. We also have the benefit that a renewable diesel project from Imperial Oil is about to be in operation in the next couple of months. They're going to need 2.5 million tons a year in canola, which is about the amount that we send to China. So this is, I think, one of the things that is happening through all of these different disputes is we're looking at ways that we can help each other, looking at ways we can find new markets, and we're going to continue doing that.
And yesterday, Premier Scott Moe in Saskatchewan, a bit frustrated with the feds, he said something along the lines of we need a Team Canada approach, not a Team Quebec approach in terms of how the tariffs are being responded to. In your eyes, are we seeing a bit of maybe a divide between Western and Eastern Canada, or are we happy with the fulsome Team Canada approach?
Listen to how well she answers this question. This is the future Prime Minister of Canada if we can manage to stay together. If not, this will be the first, probably the first female and the first Prime Minister of the new country that Alberta and Saskatchewan will form if the Liberals keep power. Listen carefully. She is a true, straightforward politician who doesn't mince words, but yet has a very soft approach to dealing with really bad media, really bad propaganda media.
That's not the quote I saw from Premier Moe. I think Premier Moe said that perhaps the new Prime Minister should make a priority of going to China or to the United States as opposed to going to Europe, because our 2 biggest challenges that we have right now are the tariff war that we're in with the United States and with China. So I think that it's a question of priorities. I share his concern about that. But we always have a very collaborative table with the Council of the Federation, and we always try to find areas where we can agree. I've been pretty public that I oppose the idea of an imposition and using energy as a weapon. I think everybody learned the lesson this week about what I was trying to warn of. But there has been what I think is a proportionate response to what we're seeing from the Americans, acknowledging we're 1/10 the size of their economy. So there is less that we can do. No one wins a trade war. No one wins a tariff war. When we put import tariffs on goods, it just hurts Canadian consumers and Canadian businesses. But sometimes these tactics are used to be able to create some pressure so we can get to a solution. The sooner we can renegotiate CUSMA, the better for everyone.
Thank you. And we have time for one, maybe two more questions. We're just going to take one more from the phones. If operator, you could put through the next caller, please, and then we'll come back to the room if we have time.
Your next question comes from Chris Verco of Calgary Herald. Your line is already open.
Hi, this is a question for the Premier. Premier, I'm just wondering, what are your thoughts on Jonathan Wilkinson being reappointed the Natural Resources Minister and Terry Duguid being appointed the Environmental Minister?
Well, let me start with Terry Duguid. He had come out here to assist in helping to make sure that the housing could be built in Jasper. So I'm grateful for that because we had put forward a proposal that was rejected, and I'm glad they were able to find an alternative proposal. So I'll look forward to seeing if he is prepared to repeal any of the offensive laws that we've been fighting for the last number of years. As for Jonathan Wilkinson, when I was down at CERAWeek, I had an American official say to me, how can a Canadian energy minister be opposed to pipelines? And I said, that's a great question. So I would say that I would like to see a recalibration on the part of everyone. When you have the Energy Minister of Canada openly musing that we don't need to build pipelines, at the same time as I'm in the United States trying to get pipelines built and talking to my counterparts east, west, and north, trying to get our product to market, is counterproductive. So that's why I said I haven't really seen much of a recalibration. They can shuffle the deck, but it's still the same foundational ideology that has been punishing to our province for the last 10 years. So we need an election to sort it out, and I hope that gets called sooner rather than later.
Just as a follow-up question, the Prime Minister today said he wants to make Canada a superpower both in conventional and clean energy. What is your reaction to those comments, and how would you suggest he do it?
Well, what I would like to see is economic corridors built so that we can get a few more pipelines built to the West Coast for both natural gas as well as for our heavy oil and conventional oil. I'd like to see a similar type of approach so that we can get an economic corridor built to Grays Bay so that we can also unlock critical minerals potential. I'd like to see if we could get a corridor built to Churchill so that we can do some platforms there so we can do export. And I'd like to see a restart of an Energy East concept that may use a different route. I understand Montreal is a little difficult to contemplate, but maybe there's a different route that we could use. And I'm delighted to see that Nova Scotia has taken the ban off fracking. Those are the kind of things that you say that you see if you really want to see a change of direction. I'd also like to see at G7, which will be in Kananaskis, I'd like to see all of the G7 leaders sign on to a commitment to pursue natural gas as a way of not only providing energy to the world, but also reducing emissions. When you use natural gas, you're not using coal and dung and wood and other higher emitting products. And so that will help us to address issues of energy poverty around the world. So that's what I'd like to see happen. We have already demonstrated our willingness to partner on new energy solutions. Through Emissions Reduction Alberta, Alberta Innovates, Alberta Enterprise Corporation, and various other entities, we helped to start, gave some seed funding to Ever, which is now doing at-scale geothermal development and are helping us with our drilling accelerator. We have funded small modular nuclear research and partnered with Saskatchewan on an MOU to try to roll that out. We'll be having a nuclear consultation happening in Alberta throughout the coming months. We have also developed a hydrogen hub and starting to build out hydrogen not only for transportation fuels but for home heating and electricity. We are developing ammonia as an alternative as well to do dual combustion with coal to reduce emissions profiles. We have carbon capture, utilization, and storage at scale, which has helped us to develop and attract businesses such as net zero hydrogen, net zero petrochemicals with Dow, as well as a final investment decision coming soon, I hope, for net zero cement with Heidelberg. So we have embraced both. The problem with the federal government is that they have only embraced one. And what we need to see is an all hands on deck approach to energy. And unfortunately, I just haven't seen any concrete action that leads me to believe that there's been a change of heart on the part of this current government. So I think we need to have an election to get that fully vetted.
Thank you. And we have time for one last quick question. We'll come back.
And there you have it. I'm going to switch over and show you a little bit about what's going on with the bullcrap document that the media is doing dance and figging around. Oh la la, look at Carney, he cut the carbon tax, he cut the carbon tax, oh la la la. It's all lies. It's all lies. All of it. Lies. Michelle Rempel Garner posted this. Now, this is interesting because she's absolutely right, and then I'm going to show you another post where the guy actually pretty much proves it's a lie, and now it's actually been fact checked, and it's a lie. It's literally a lie. So I'm just going to read what she wrote here because it's pretty important. So executive orders don't exist in Canada. This paper isn't worth the Sharpie it's signed with. The carbon tax still exists, and Mark Carney is apparently busy signing fakes while trying to copy Donald Trump's daily executive signing ceremonies. He is gaslighting you, and the media is lying through their teeth. So whatever this is, it's not an order in council. And OIC is made by the GG, which is the Governor General, on advice of Cabinet, not an I hereby instruct directive signed by the Prime Minister. Now, Juan Zezhu he looked into it, and yes, it is a lie. Since I've gotten ridiculous replies, this piece of paper isn't an order in council, which comes from the Governor General, and it isn't a recommendation to the GG on an ONC. It's a fake document masquerading as a legal order by a PM who's claiming to have powers he doesn't have. Mark Carney's chief of staff was caught lying in court about the existence of an order in council, so I suppose it's not hugely surprising that Carney would be signing a fake executive order in imitation to Donald Trump. Now, trying to read it, I hereby acknowledge that the Fed charge be something on April 1st, April 25, Canada, something carbon rebate removed. It's actually not even a legal document if you read it. It carries the stamp on the top, but it's actually not a legal document. It's a lie. It's literally a blatant lie. Show this to your liberal friends. Like, people, please like, share, and subscribe, and get the voices of people like myself. There's a lot of us. You got to really be careful who you look at. Make sure that they put all of their homework down below so you can fact check. Push the truth. We need to have an open dialogue. We need to get the word out, and we need to expose all of this mainstream that's bought and paid for. This is what's caused Canada to be where we are today. Generations of having to deal with this. It's absurd. Canada is a failed nation. The last 10 years have proven that we can be infiltrated from the top right to the bottom so fast. And you got to remember, the real liberals started fleeing the Liberal Party 10 years ago. Actually, it was like 11 and a half years ago when they found Trudeau running and started to realize the Palestinian and Chinese influence in the elections, especially through Soros and a lot of the American propaganda, and those firms, so-called nonprofits, were being funded from global elites. They saw it within their own party. true liberals fled this party. This party is not the Liberal Party. I wish people would start to realize this. The whole party is a sham. All of their little school buddies and all of the people taking pay from it have been infiltrated everywhere. They have appointed the top senior levels of everything from the judicial to the Senate to our RCMP, right down to border control. It's everywhere. The entire country has been corrupt. The bacteria that is the Liberal Party of today has spread throughout Canada. The only way to rid it is to disinfect it, and sunshine is the best disinfectant. And in order to do it, we need to decimate them in the polls. And that includes anybody else on board that was voting for these types of agenda. The NDP, the Green Party, especially the Green Party, these people are psychopaths, sycophobes and psychopaths. Like Elizabeth May, Drunk May, there are so many real scientists that have stated things that she's said that are a blatant lie. Everything that comes out of her mouth is a lie. She's a propaganda artist pushing for a narrative. It's all lies. We're broken. Canada's broken. My heart's broken because I have to deal with this every day. But I'm doing this trying to get the word out. I'm trying to get the word out so badly. I just want the truth to prevail. Please, people, like, share, and subscribe. And if you are, punch that notification bell so you don't miss any future episodes. I'm going to start to try and do 10-minute news cycles. I'm going to do them on TikTok. I will upload them to my YouTube channel. They seem to be incredibly successful. They seem to be just launching. It's something that I think it's easy for them to hear. They like it in a short clip. I'm going to try and do that on a daily basis. So hopefully, if you're not on TikTok, I'm on many different social media and I am growing. I'll be joining more. So I'm on X, I'm on Facebook. Obviously, I'm on YouTube. I'm on TikTok. I'm going to be joining other social media outlets because, believe it or not, I'm actually getting a lot of people requesting me to get on them because they don't have TikTok and they run something different. So more stuff for me to learn and try to get the word out. So I need your help, guys. Like, share, and subscribe. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Until next time, you've been watching the Canadian Citizen Journal, and I am your host, alias Tagai.